We're in Ojai, and it's about 2 hours north of LA, and it's a beautiful setting here. So I'm on a piece of property that's almost 2 acres, and my landlady lives in the main house, and there's 2 other structures that are separate guest houses, and she rents it out. So we kind of share the parcel with several other people, and it's kind of interesting because it's the idea of the community. And my tiny house and tiny office, interestingly enough, is in the corral where the horses are normally kept, but they're not used for that anymore. So this is the pool that's shared by a lot of the different tenants who stay here. That's one of the guest houses, and another guest house is behind the main house. So there's actually 3 separate permanent structures on a foundation, and my landlady, also had a vision for a tiny house community, or a community of sorts. So she was thrilled with the idea of having me here. And it just helps everyone with her mortgage and having a sense of people around. So I'm gonna open both doors. So it's all about indoor-outdoor space so that it becomes part of the living space. This is the great room. It's basically letting as much light in as possible and really having a feeling of expansiveness by creating a vaulted ceiling. I put a window, well, it's not a window, but it has the perception of a window, so you're always looking out to nature. And this is why I have the double French doors. This is called the rolling library ladder system. When going up the loft, I just slide it out. It's on both on this side as well as that side, so I can access the storage above there. But this is just a really simple 2x4 stud that was used for the ladder and notched out for the treads. This is just probably my favorite place in my tiny house because it's super cozy. And it allows me to feel like I'm camping because I have a huge skylight there where I can watch the moon and the stars at night as if I'm inside my tent, and the skylight opens so I can have ventilation come in. This system allows you to operate it fully opened so that you can access it. I mean, I could stand up if I wanted to, like into the trees, but the tree's kind of in the way right now. It rotates on a pivot, so it has this mechanism. You can change it there. So the operation is now a top pivot as opposed to a center pivot. So you can get more of your body out if you needed to for an exit. So I click on this, and then let me see if this, there, I think that's the center pivot. So it allows you to clean the glass. So you can clean the window completely on the other side. Oops, I'm letting I'm always afraid if there's like a snake or some other creature coming in.
But so the idea is to let nature in.
Exactly, you're totally in it. So it feels like you're in a treehouse. And then you can see the full moon and the stars at night. It's pretty amazing. And then back here, I have the circular window. Provides kind of an accent from the exterior. It sort of looks like a birdhouse from the exterior. And it's directly above my bed, obviously. I call it a moon window. But the trick with circular windows, they took layers of like 1/4-inch plywood and bent it.
Yeah.
And then they did that over and over again because you can't bend like 1/2 inch. It has to be different thin layers. So they had to keep layering it and layering it. It's not that I got interested in tiny houses. I was always interested in it because that's just how it was. I came from the Philippines and I lived in not really a small house, but we didn't have any financial means really. I have 9 brothers and sisters, and I just learned to live with, 10, 12 other people in the household. And I remember when we immigrated from the Philippines to here, we lived in, it was a 1-bedroom for like 6 of us. I think I occupied the closet, so I guess I was used to it in that way. After college, I moved around a lot, so I never had anything more than a 1-bedroom shared with another roommate during college. And I traveled a lot. I love to travel. And so I never had a lot of stuff. So that was my way of life. So I never wanted to have a mortgage or a house because that just meant that I'd have just debt. And I just didn't like that. I have no debt on my house. I don't have any debt actually, period. So I own my home outright. I own my office outright. I don't own land because it's just too expensive. But it's allowed me to live in different places without having to invest in all the necessary transactions with buying property. A lot of people are attacking that because we're not paying property taxes and we're not abiding by the traditional laws. But many of us want to. There just isn't anything in place right now to make it legal, and that's what we're fighting for right now in the city of Ojai and throughout the country. Many tiny house legislation is changing for that. So interestingly enough, it was quite an effort to get my house and my office here. There's so much discussion about the transiency of tiny houses and how we're like trailers and we're like trailer parks and we're going to reduce property values. And they think that we're just going to drive in and out our trailers in the middle of the night and then take it out anytime we please. But the reality is that it's incredibly hard to put these things on a property. I had to create kind of an access way here. So there was a lot of earth movement and bobcats and equipment to actually create this access, and the trees had to be trimmed. And then I had to do underground trenching for the water supply and the utilities for my solar panels. So there's a huge expense and a lot of time.
A lot of people dream about having 2 units next to each other. Was that a dream for you as well? Or?
Yes, it was a dream for me. It was always prohibitive with the space that I was in because it wasn't large enough to have 2 units on there, especially if there's a main dwelling already on the property. And you have to really be sensitive to your neighbors because that's what drives this whole legality issue. It's complaint driven by the neighbors, so I make it a point to always speak to the neighbors even before the idea comes with putting my house on the property. I need to speak to the neighbors to make sure that they're okay, and I would work with them to have participation on their end on where they think it would work so that they don't have, direct views and minimizing the noise and privacy issues. Last year, I actually had my office in another part of the parcel tucked behind this tree. And so I only had my office here for about 6 months before I put my home here because I always had a vision to bring them together. So this is my office space. So everything here is plywood, all my furniture. I have the formaldehyde-free plywood everywhere because I didn't want to have any off-gassing. I actually want to show you. The wheel well sits up to here. So again, I wanted to maximize the use of the space. So I captured this for storage. So to do that, I was able to put all my office supplies in this one huge drawer that's just sitting on casters. So it's the entire length of half of the trailer. I can put, if I wanted to, a twin-size mattress in here because it doesn't have to be an office space. It could be like a little cottage. Yeah, you can take the divider out and have it be more flexible. It's pretty flexible for the use, and it's super inexpensive. And it just sits on casters. Nothing super fancy for the hardware. There's really no hardware. It's just casters down here. But again, the same ideas are employed here. The great room is vaulted space as opposed to the lofted area.
Okay.
And the great room is, again, multifunctional for different types of rooms. So this is kind of my conference room for the office space. It's also my dining. And in this little pop-out off of the trailer is just a really super compact kitchen. So my sink, it was originally much deeper because for a traditional refrigerator and sinks and cabinetry should be 24 inches. But then the tow hitch, there's a crank in front of the tow hitch where you have to turn, which meant that to clear that tow hitch, we needed to minimize the amount of depth for the cabinet. So the sink had to be turned sideways. And then my refrigerator was the biggest research project I had done for a tiny house because it was such a small space. The reason now that I have colors in this office space is because this is the only choice I had. The sink, I could have it a continuous sink. I think this is how it works. So again, to maximize the countertop, the chopping board becomes part of the countertop. And then I just usually just keep it out here. And then for cooking, if I wanted to cook, I just have an induction stove. And again, there's no gas, propane gas in the office because I wanted to be self-sufficient without having to haul tanks of propane gas. So this is all electrical. So it's all on solar. I'm completely off-grid. Even if I had 4 days of no sun, everything on for 4 days, it would still power everything. The solar panels had to be located in an area that's completely open. So you can't really have any trees or any shading around it. It was originally on top of my roof, but that didn't work because I prefer to be adjacent to trees for my house, but that's anti-productive for the panels, so I had to move it. So it had to be kind of further away from my house to have this open area. They look like they're two different systems because one was for the office, the other one was for the house, and then put them together. The batteries they're not lead, they're lithium phosphate batteries, so they're completely non-toxic. They're more compact than typical lead acid batteries. They're also modular, so I can add to it, unlike lead acid batteries. And they don't heat up as much, so the fire hazard is minimized. And it's basically hooking up both my house and my office. And so now I'm completely off the grid. The orientation of the two units. So yeah, neighbors are a big deal. And another thing is access, because I can always dream of a certain layout for the units, but if the truck can't really place it accordingly with the turning radius, that's a really limiting factor. And another thing is the trees. I wanted it to be more tucked in for the shade, but we didn't really want to compromise the health of the tree with the branches. So we trimmed it a little bit, but that was as far as we can get to get it close enough to the fence. And then I always wanted to have a deck that shared the two spaces so that it becomes the outdoor space, like a big living space or a dining space. This is an 8-foot length. This is another module from here to there. And then this is another module. So you have 3 8-by-8-foot modules. So you can arrange it kind of like a Lego piece of parts, because I know I'm going to move again because I don't own the property. This is 2-by-6 regular studs that you can buy at any lumber store. And they're 8 feet long, so you wouldn't have to cut it. It's just built on CMU blocks. The blocks allow you to kind of level it because there is quite a bit of drop from this end to that end. It's detached also from the structure, so you can move it. And you can see the gap because there was this wheel well which couldn't get scooted up any closer, and it wasn't quite square to the other structure. This and the other window was from Habitat for Restore. So these were the first things that I bought, and they're super inexpensive. They're like vinyl, and the contractor just ordered the wrong size. and I think it was $200 for all 3 windows. When I got these doors, they were completely different. It was from Craigslist. This used to open in, so we engineered it so it opens out, and we redid all of the thresholds and the jambs. It's never really leveled, so it creaks. So we had to just jerry-rig all these different hardware for it, and they cut it down also because it was too tall. So there's the creaking of that door. The interior space here was trying to reflect light and to achieve as much light as possible without really glaring eye level height with low windows. I try to create as much clear story windows and indirect lighting. So for instance, there's a skylight so that you can allow hot air to rise up. There's also a fan so that you can direct as much cross ventilation across the space. And this is a sofa, a guest bed, a lounge area. When my husband and I want to watch a movie, we set up my laptop here, and then I repositioned the pillows, so accidentally it became a reclining area. So believe it or not, that fits the 2 of us like really snugly. So we can just kind of really lay sideways and watch that way, and recline. One of the original intention was to have my office here, believe it or not. So having large drawings, at least 24 by 36 drawings, was a requirement for my desk. So that's why this is so big. And I created this radius because I wanted more space for the sofa and more space here, because this is going to be my file storage. And this is this rolling table that serves a lot of different purposes. So this is made out of the siding that was from the exterior, and it just nests underneath the sofa there. And this is on casters. This is plywood, maple plywood, and it just sits directly next to that little end table for dining and storage, etc. And you can also kind of put this, and basically it nests so that it minimizes the amount of space on the floor. And the casters are always wonderful because you can always store them away really easily. That was actually designed after I moved into this space after a month, because I wanted to see how it was to live in here before designing something again. My influence from traveling to Japan and Asian countries and Scandinavian countries was really utilizing light and subtle design inspiration like nature, so that it's not too powerful, it's just a subtle expression of design. So my friend Alicia, she had all these sketches of trees, and I wanted to incorporate trees in my house. So I saw her sketchbooks and fell in love with them. So she stitched every single one of these pillows by hand. Like this one took her 3 months to do this one pillow. And these materials that she chose was always in consideration for using recycled, inexpensive materials. So guess what this is, this fabric, which is this too, because she made that and she made these. So this is painter's drop cloth. Incredibly cheap, very big, swaths of fabric. And 4 years later, I think I dry cleaned this once, and this I never did. So it's so durable, and it becomes a blackout drapery.
Looks like linen.
It looks like linen, like Belgian linen. But it's just painter's drop cloth, super cheap, and it's in huge pieces. That's what that is too. And then this one, we went to the old property and just got some branches and cut them up. And then she used old shoelaces from either her father's shoes or my husband's old boots. But those are just old shoelaces. And she used the same thread throughout the pillows and the drapery.
How's it go up?
Well, that's kind of an engineering feat, because you kind of have to undo the laces so that it grabs onto one of the branches. So it's a little bit of a feat. And another collaboration from more friends of mine is this cabinet, which is also the wardrobe. So the stencil was done by another artist, muralist friend of mine. She collaborated with another friend. They worked on the theme of sycamore leaves for both panels. And this allows the light to come in from the bathroom so that you have light throughout the interior of the kitchen. So my wardrobe, this was kind of challenging because I don't have any full height hanging space. And of course I had to get rid of a lot of different clothes, especially if they're not multi-purpose. Things like jackets that can serve for rain and skiing, and linen. Linen is really great because you don't have to iron it. This is linen. And you can travel with it, and it's usually all season. So this is from a designer in Bulgaria, I think. It could be casual, you just wear leggings with it, and it could be for hot or cool weather, you just layer with a long sleeve. And dark clothes are always good because it can get dirty without being obvious. So this is a drawer for kind of smaller, like scarves and things like that. But my wardrobe is actually not this small, it's also this one. So I just have little storage units that act as drawers, like for an armoire, and my more linen is over there. So, you know, after you pare down your wardrobe, it's so nice to not have to think about what you're gonna wear, because it takes so much time making a decision on an outfit. The kitchen is, I always joke that it's the biggest kitchen I've ever had in the guest houses I've lived in, because you have plenty of space for several people to work in it. You have, you know, deep sink. You're able to put a ton of pots and pans in here. The gooseneck allows you to really stack it up high. And then the spray, so that it's pretty flexible. And again, storage. So on both sides, I have open shelving. You can see all of your food right away in front of you, so you don't really waste it after, let's say, months of sitting inside your refrigerator and pantry space because you forget it's there. My refrigerator, this is one of the big draws for my electrical load. It doesn't have a freezer because the freezers don't work well within refrigerators, which means I can't have ice cream. It's good for my health. And then here, it's a super inexpensive RV burner, and it takes up so little room. There's only about 4 inches below that, so that's why I was able to get so much junk in my cabinet there. The hot water heater is a small little bread box size. This unit and my RV stove and my fireplace is powered by propane. And again, light, light, light. So the horizontal window here allows you to have direct light on your working surface on the countertop, but still have storage above with the open shelving. And also here, you still have natural light coming in from the window. Still have storage above also. And the sliding door, the pocket door, allows you to not use up any floor space with a swing. You may go into super tiny bathroom. The dimension on this is about 2.5 feet deep by 7.5 feet long. So it's a fully functioning bathroom with a sink, and then you have a composting toilet here. It's a bucket. And here there's 2 compartments for the liquids and the solids. And then you sit down and then it automatically opens. So there's a bucket below. You take the bucket out and you compost it. So it's like a sophisticated bucket system of the U-manure. It has a fan that goes on 24 hours a day, so it really minimizes any odors. You don't really hear it.
No, it's just spray.
It's just kind of a hum. It really draws the air out.
Yeah.
And it's 24 hours, so it's always drawing it out.
That's on solar. So
That's on solar, and it's such a small amount. It's normally can even go on a cigarette lighter. And I use a lot of vertical storage because there's not much room on the floor. And then again, using white as much as possible to reflect light. My shower curtain is white. My tiles are white. Super simple. These are just, you know, leftover Dell tile from the Restore Habitat for Humanity, so that was pretty inexpensive. The one thing I really definitely wanted to have was a window inside the shower, because it allows you to vent all the moisture out of the space, and always looking outside when you're in a very constricted space. And again, another window, and the sill is framed so that I can actually use it. Highly influenced with Japanese design, really simple. There's no trims necessarily, just a simple sill like that. And it's a propane fireplace, so it has to be self-contained for the safety of the gas. So this is a piece of glass. I think it's even borosilicate, so then it doesn't get too hot. The wonderful thing about this is the clearance for propane gas is a lot less. And you don't even need metal or stone for the adjacent surfaces, which means I can put it right up against my cabinet. And I was able to do it at a 45 with the clearances that are needed. So I still kind of maximize the use of this space. And it's really efficient. It only takes a few minutes to heat up this space. This is my super low-tech air conditioning unit. It's kind of a modified swamp cooler. It operates on super low voltage. This is a cigarette lighter. Normally it's used just for vans. You just put water inside with ice. But I don't have a freezer, so I have to borrow the ice from the main house. But it has a big fan inside, and so it just puts out air that's really cold at you. So it's not for big spaces, but it's ideal for tiny houses. And this I can, just carry, transport anywhere. Low energy use. See, it's getting hot. The difference between my house and my office space primarily is that the building was made out of SIPS panels, structural insulated panels. So those are panel systems that are made in a factory. They're high energy efficiency. They're sandwiched in 2 pieces of plywood with insulation in between. And so these are much more energy efficient, the walls, than in my house. So the R value is much higher in here. So the shed roof is definitely different from the gable roof. It allows you more headroom. And again, the formaldehyde-free plywood everywhere. The floors are bamboo, and the walls are also the 1/4-inch maple plywood on top of the SIPS panels. And that's also in the ceilings. This is a multi-purpose step.
Oh.
So more storage, and using the same material as the countertop there, because the horizontal surfaces I try to have repeated throughout, and that helps distinguish the space. Like, this is a public, more gathering space, and as soon as you step up to this platform, it's a little bit more private for the office, or it could be your sleeping area. A lot of people don't want to climb the ladder. This is still a 6-foot clearance, so if I want to work with somebody, they'd have to be under 6 feet to work here with me. The furniture is, again, it's always nesting, so they can minimize the amount of floor space. And that can go in that side so that I can have somebody sit here and work with me. Again, casters are really important. On this side, it's a little bit deeper. My drawings are typically 24 inches deep, so I can just put it in here. But the extra 6 inches that I gain on this side is then like with cubby holes, so I can put more junk. So they're just little finger pulls. And again, windows. Windows everywhere, but still maximizing the storage. So you have the open shelving above, the horizontal windows below. And in the future, I imagine putting like a projector screen in front there, so that it can just go down, and this could be the projector. It has the connection.
It's HDMI?
HDMI connection, yeah. And then this conduit is actually for the solar panel, because the SIPs were all the solid panels, and here we couldn't create a chase for the conduit for the solar panels that were originally on the roof. Oh, and this is my charge control. So It always says full charge.
So you have a lot of things on right now.
Yeah, I have my computer, I have my laptop. The fan is up there, and this is another fan that directs it on my chair, my table. And then for the heating element in here, because I don't have propane, this is a super simple wall mount unit. It's just a convection heater for this size space. It's really perfect. The biggest draw is the fridge and also the induction stove, but it's still not too bad. So again, it's the rolling ladder hardware, and oh, it got changed. Anyway, this is a different type of roof. It's a shed roof versus the gable roof from my tiny house. And a lot of people say they prefer it because it has a higher head height, and there's continuous windows in the back here, so there's really a lot of light. I actually prefer my bedroom loft because it's more of a cocoon for sleeping. This is more for lounging during the day. I do my siesta here every so often when I have a headache or I just want to take a little nap. And my guests have stayed here, and they did mention that it's so bright in the morning, you can't really stay asleep. So, you know, but it's a nice view with all the trees around you, and this obviously opens so that there is cross ventilation. So if I'm like reading a book or just taking siesta, I basically there's a lot of light coming in, but I would just kind of lay down or just kind of recline and read a book. There's so many windows, you just feel you're so open. So I prefer my gable roof for the sleeping loft. I prefer this for a day use because it's kind of more of a big open space. I've seen a lot of tiny houses that just feel really massive and tall, and I wanted to reduce that. This is a 16-foot trailer, and my house is a 20-foot trailer. So I knew that the height of this was even going to be taller than my house. So I really wanted to break up the feeling of the mass. So I expressed the top part like as a horizontal slatted wood, almost like as a void, to break up the massing, because this is just under 14 feet. And I really wanted to keep the proportions very reasonable. The positioning of the windows with the circular shape offsets the rigid rectilinear kind of design of the rest of the elevation. And this is the pop out to allow for the kitchen space. And the reason why it's not all the way to the edge here is because you need to leave a turning radius. This is where I would plug in case I wanted to be on the grid. RVs is what tiny houses on wheels are considered because it's on wheels. So it's a three-pronged outlet, so I could be on grid. You cannot live full-time on an RV, even if it's your own property that you purchased. You cannot live more than, let's say, 180 days in an RV because that's what the term limit is for staying and recreating in an RV. So tiny housers want to live in it full time. They're not planning to travel in it, most people. So that's what we're fighting for, to just have legal status.